Hi friends, I'm Joe Hopkins, and this is 5 Minutes to Make Sense of the Bible. Today we focus on Job chapter 23, which is almost exactly in the middle of the book. Let's get going, and then I'll offer a brief summary, share some context and connections for this chapter, and then pose some reflection questions. First, let's look at the structure of the book of Job. The book begins with 2 chapters of prose and ends with a chapter of prose, with 5 verses of prose that begin chapter 32. The rest of the book, nearly 39 chapters, is all poetry. Chapters 3 through 27 are made up of speeches by Job and 3 companions, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. A pattern emerges in which Job makes a speech, then one of the companions responds, though each companion's speech doesn't address Job's speech directly, and the cycle of Job's speech and a companion's response repeats 2 2/3 times. For some reason, Zophar gets short shrift and is only credited with 2 speeches, while Eliphaz and Bildad each get 3. In chapter 32, a new speaker arrives, a younger man named Elihu, who is very angry with Job because, quote, Job thought himself right against God, unquote. But this week we're focusing on Job's poetic lament in chapter 23. In Jewish and Christian tradition, as well as popular culture, we often think of Job as being patient. But Job doesn't sound very patient in chapter 23. On the other hand, Job sounds quite impatient in his desire to bring a lawsuit against God. And despite the arguments of his companions to the contrary, Job is still convinced of his own innocence. Job proclaims that he simply wants to know what reason God has for causing his suffering. However, Job doesn't know where to find God or how to get God's attention. Job also has decidedly mixed feelings about confronting God. After all, Job knows that only God is God, and he is not. Job goes back and forth considering his own righteousness and following God's commandments, so God would be on his side, right? Yet God is also so much more powerful than he is, and has already caused him so much suffering. The very thought of being in God's presence is terrifying. Absent God, Job is filled with unrelenting, agonizing questions. With God present, Job could suffer even more, though that's kind of hard to imagine. So what is Job to do? What is Job to think? What is Job to ask? And those are just some of Job's questions. Here are a few questions for you to consider. First, think of a time when you or someone you know was suffering a great deal. How did you and or other people speak and interact throughout the time of suffering? Was the conversation helpful, hurtful, or a mix of the two? Next, how do you feel about the concept of suing God? Does a lawsuit against God sound blasphemous and scary? Or does it strike you as refreshing and exciting? Finally, how do you respond to hearing or reading ideas about God that you disagree with? Do you ever engage in theological debate? Why or why not? So there, 5 minutes to make sense of the Bible. I am preaching on the book of Job throughout this month of October at Streetsville United Church on Sunday mornings. So check out our YouTube channel for a recording of our worship services. And as you read the Bible by yourself, pay attention to what piques your curiosity. The Spirit often tries to catch our attention through our curiosity. And as always, while it's good to read the Bible by ourselves, we make the most sense of the Bible when we read the Bible together. Peace, friends.